In this tank review, characteristics, imprisonment, fast food, tactics for different game modes, comparisons, and babies. RU-251. That's not a question, that's a tank builders who knew how to properly name their tanks creation. Rank 4 premium light tank in German tech tree. So what can you expect from it? To get better understanding what this vehicle is capable of, let's take a look at characteristics and see how it compares with similar battle rating tanks you will face on the battlefield. First and most important thing, the speed of this tank is so huge that we might need to introduce a new measurement unit, the speed of light tank. Engine power to weight ratio combined with high maximum speed limit and some random numbers in tank's name gives you luxury to be certain that you will be the first one on your team to reach any position on the map and generate pain in enemies' ass who often will be approaching zone already captured by you. This of course if you decide to go forward. Thanks to the same tank builders, this vehicle has the same forward and backward speed that can help you to get out of bad situations without wasting your time to turn around. And these bad situations will happen every time you face another tank. The thickest armor plates are only 30 mm thick, which gives you the same luxury to be certain that you will suffer damage if you are fired something more serious than machine gun. And considering 10 mm roof, I would hide it from rain just in case. Gun's elevation plus 20 degrees and depression minus 9 degrees Celsius. This depression angle makes you an average tank between all nations except Soviets who cannot play hull down. Turret rotation speed is one of the highest. If you see something that is not SPAA, most likely you can turn your turret faster. Talking about turning, what is the difference between imprisonment and this tank? While imprisoned, you can look back and see all the bad things you've done. While in RU-251, you can look back to find out you cannot lower your gun and can only helplessly watch what bad things others are doing to you. So even if you can't count on your armor plates, make sure to turn your front towards possible threat. Reload speed is faster than some of the heavy tanks, but usually your opponents, especially with smaller calibers, will be able to shoot faster, so if you both make shots at the same time and enemy's gunner or loader are still alive, you will have to use your speed of light tank backwards to disengage. Scout ability together with artillery and airstrike modification will make your life a little bit easier, while lack of stabilizer will be an issue and you'll have to completely stop to be able to fire into more precise targets than just forwards. Smokescreen will be useful mostly to retreat, but since you have no smoke shells, you might be forced to use it to cover your attack. That's very ineffective, but sometimes there are no better options. You have two 7.62mm machine guns to either take down enemy planes or be that annoying person who shoots at friends' backs just after the respawn. And finally, we get to something more interesting than driving and turning a turret. Now let's talk about explosives you spit at enemies. Yes, it's always on explosives. Tank's ammunition choice reminds me of the fast foods menu. Doesn't matter how many options you have, you will always end up with some meat and potatoes. A high explosive with almost 1 kilogram of explosives is good only for filling the garbage bin. The only real choice is heat and hash. Heat has bigger velocity, so easier to aim at long range, and 320mm of penetration means that most of your opponents will be penetrated easily unless hit at extreme angles. Post-penetrating effect is quite small, something you would expect from 90mm caliber heat shell. Hash has 3 kilograms of TNT equivalent of explosives, which is just slightly less than a weight of an average newborn. It can penetrate at least 100mm depending on angle, and when it does, it sends a cloud of metal inside an enemy's tank, killing most of the crew members. The problem is that very often, and I mean too often, it doesn't penetrate at all, even when hitting sides or back, especially when fighting a heavy armor tanks. Sometimes it feels like if they had just a little bit more explosives, at least a baby weight, that would change situation drastically. But now shell is very random and there are not too many situations where it could be chosen over heat. And I have good news and a bad news regarding all these shells. The bad news? All these armor types cannot shoot through trees or walls, and sometimes it even feels like bush decorations are blocking shells. And sometimes it feels like air is blocking shells. The good news? All of them can easily hull break lightly armored tanks, instantly rewarding you with kill, no matter where you hit them. Let's get deeper into shells in game mode specifics. In arcade, everyone has boosted engine and can reach their maximum speed easier and faster. Despite it also affects IU-251, making it a race car where your Tetris racing skills become useful, the difference between all tanks decreases, and that means that here you'll have less advantage. Yes, most of the time you can arrive to central capture point faster than opponents, but very often your capturing will be stopped by enemies arriving on the circle. If the capture point is in more distant location where you can expect less enemies, go for it. As soon as you capture, get out of there. You don't want to be in the middle of action. Assume any hit to be lethal, and even random artillery strikes will be a threat. Alternatively, you can rush for a good sniping position, ignoring the capture point. Reveal yourself, get to a cover, and start distracting opponents while your team captures point. This is not very rewarding for you personally, but is very helpful to ruin the fight. Most of the time, incoming enemy forces will slow down as soon as they see you. Very often you can see 3-4 tanks wasting their time, standing, waiting for you to pick out, while your team successfully captures the objective. After that, it's much easier to defend it, since time plays in your favor. This is the only game mode I would take few HESH shells for this tank. When enemies are hiding between rocks and you get just a tiny part of them exposed, and heat shell would ricochet or won't hit any critical parts, HESH shell might do a trick with explosion breaking a roof or other less protected part inaccessible for heat. In realistic, I would also separate same two tactics, rushing for capture and slowing down opponents, but with realistic specifics. It's worth noting at the start how many people are in the match and the map size. Artillery strike here is available from beginning, and you must keep that in mind. Rushing to capture small point everyone is heading to might be a suicide when everyone drops artillery on you. On the other hand, your speed advantage is very significant and you can expect to get there first. Usually, if the capture point is large enough and you have more than one place to hide within it, you will cap without trouble. There will be other fast enemies from enemy side rushing for the same points as you. Your biggest advantage is that you don't really need to aim too much. Everyone who arrives at the same time as you will be a small, light, hull-breakable vehicles. Any direct hit with heat or HESH shell will most likely destroy it no matter where you hit, giving you the ability to shoot few moments faster than your opponent. The disadvantage is that your team is denied additional respawn points, and that by the time you finish capturing, enemies will be close and aware of your location. Slowing down opponents by ignoring an objective proved to be very effective on maps where you would be too exposed if tried to capture. In this case, thanks to significant speed differences, you can hide between enemy respawn and objective, hiding in places where no one would really expect you to be so fast. In this case, you can destroy the first wave of opponents, giving your team time not only to capture but to take a good defending positions. Despite my love to random HESH shells, in realistic this tank performs much better with heat, just because you can count on them. At larger range, heat's velocity helps you to aim, while at close range it's very important to penetrate with a first shot before enemy killed you. And HESH just doesn't provide that reliability. After failing to penetrate heavy tanks from behind when I needed that the most, I completely dismissed HESH from this tank's arsenal in this game mode and never been in a situation where I would feel sorry for that. Summarizing this tank's features: relatively big gun for a light tank, a high engine power to mass ratio and a huge backward speed makes the RU-251 feel different from usual vehicles at this battle rating. At the same time, speed advantage comes with very poor survivability. It's a step from a quite slow mid-tiers gameplay into a faster endgame with big penetrations and much more mobility. Subscribe, watch more similar videos, and tell me what vehicles interest you the most in the comments.